just um, that we can get straight into it, as I know we've got a lot of great speakers today that we want to give some time to. So, good morning. My name is Katie. I'm from Boomerang Labs and Rocket Seeder today. We have a collaborative webinar. Boomerang Labs runs a monthly webinar program, and this month we decided to collaborate with Rocket Seeder, who's focused on food innovation and agriculture. So today's topic is AI on farm, facilitating the better use of AgTech, obviously regenerating nature, and looking after the environment is core to circular. However, there's just such a broader industry conversation that needs to happen beyond the usual circular circles. That was bad phrasing. But essentially, you wanted to bring some more people into the conversation today. So I will be handing over in a second to Andrew Ward, who will be our main facilitator for today. But we wanted to firstly start with the usual formalities. We firstly like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands in which we all work and live today from across Australia and beyond. We extend our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And as we mentioned, this is a collaborative webinar between Boomerang Labs and Rocket Seeder. So given we'll have a bit of a mixed audience, we wanted to first just give a really brief overview of what that actually means and who we are. So Boomerang Labs is supporting the transition to a circular economy by helping grow the ideas and talents of entrepreneurs and small businesses that have circular systems at their core. So we work with entrepreneurs from early ideation stage to the late stage commercialization, as well as working within the broader circular community and ecosystem to support industry to engage with innovators. Rocket Seeder operates with a similar function, but primarily focusing on ideas and technologies that transform how we grow, move, and enjoy food. The Rocket Seeder, as the image reflects, is really focused on ag and food innovation. Today, as mentioned, we're focusing on artificial intelligence on farms, and we've got a great lineup of speakers. But we have a few other events coming up, so I wanted to give them a quick plug, and we'll put some links in the chat as well for people interested in staying involved in future events we've got running. So this afternoon, we will be, anyone that's Sydney-based, we will be at Young Henry's in Newtown from 5:30 for Circular on Tap. It's just our recurring networking event if anyone's in town. We're also doing a book swap just to be a little bit different this time around. But if you don't have a book, that's fine. Just come and have a drink or a chat with the rest of us in the pub. And then promoting next month's webinar for Boomerang Labs, getting buy-in from the inside, driving circular behavior change. So Taylor will be sending those links into the chat if you'd like to register for those. And I think that's all I need to say. So, Woody, I'll pass over to you.
Thanks, Katie. Welcome, everybody. Pleasure on my behalf to be here with you on behalf of Rocket Seeder. I'm a friend of Rocket Seeder and work in that ag tech and innovation space and have done for many years. I think I left a degree in ag science to set up a search engine before Google was even founded. It didn't work out, but it's been an interest of mine. So um, this whole area has sort of been opening up in the last couple of years. It seems to be accelerating and getting a kind of finger on the pulse of AI and ag tech and what it means to farmers and on farm has been a topic it's one of my curiosities. So it's great today to be able to get three people who are working in that sort of nexus of agriculture or like farmer. Andrew Gill's going to talk with us. Regional AI founder Tiffany Lay's going to speak with us, and Rowan Clark from Farm Assistant is going to speak with us. And I hope that at the end of that, we've all got a much better grasp on how AI and ag tech will work on farm. So I'm going to actually ask Tiffany if she'll come off speaker first, and please help us to understand what's happening with AI and how does it relate to on-farm ag tech.
Right. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. So I probably come at it from a slightly different angle, coming from corporate side in marketing strategy, and then recently shifted to being a farm owner ourselves, as well as having a small business in the food agricultural space. So I'm going to share with you today our journey of where we've come from AI in our own business, but then how I then started Regional AI Co. and give you some tips as to how I think about approaching AI. So I want to sort of put you guys in the mindset of thinking what is in your pocket right now. And something has fundamentally changed in terms of the access as regional based businesses as what we have access to right now. And that little thing is called AI. And essentially what we have sitting in our pockets at 11 p.m. at night, where we're having our biggest strategic conversations in our mind, we have access to McKinsey-like level consulting or a global marketing director or a new market entry specialist or even a financial advisor to help you navigate some of your biggest business problems. And this is for free at 11 p.m. at night with no retainer and no invoice available to everyone in this room. And this is a huge step change for what we have access to as regional small business. And, this could be one of the biggest economic levelers that will change in our lifetimes. And majority of what I'm seeing out there is people are just using it to rewrite their emails. Obviously, today you're seeing other products getting built with AI, but in terms of small business, that's how they're operating, dropping it into ChatGTP and drafting a rewrite of an email. But I want to share with you the story of how we have step changed our Margra lamb business. So this is Graham Gilmore walking through the paddock. Those sheep are Aussie whites. Um, Graham is the founder of the Australian white breed. And during his 20-year discovery of building out this breed, they really realized the meat quality was quite different to traditional wool breed sheep. And we started this brand called Margaret Lamb about 7 years ago. And my husband brought me on board around 5 years ago to help sort of build out the brand, given my marketing history. And we were just sort of entering US based market as well as Asia. And we also got ranged in first and business class in Qantas as the mainland protein. So we really needed to grow up. And my first question to him was, well, how are we going to, really step change this brand if we don't have marketing budgets or any support, resource support? And he enrolled AI at the time. This was 2 years ago. We had a big job to do. We had to write a 3-year growth map. We had an innovation strategy. We needed to reset our financial position to export. We had extensive research on the breed. We had 7 published articles, but nothing was translating into chef language. And we needed to reshape and sort of portray the story of the Margra Lamb brand. And we got a documentary up and running that is now running in Qantas screens. And we had to revisit our website. So we had a lot of things on our to-do list that simply with a 2-man team running this, we obviously had a sales distributor as well. It just wasn't physically possible. So the big ambitions that we had, we needed to find another way. So AI for us was born out of necessity for our growth strategy. And what we did, if we went down the avenue of going through consultancies, I remember getting a market research for the US quote. It was $60,000 to do a deep dive into the meat industry and consumer understanding over there for lamb. It was just not even on our radar as affordability. And a creative agency, it just wasn't there. So for us, we really honed in on AI, and we could generally deliver the same outcome with a very different approach just by having AI as an extension of our team through multiple platforms as to how we then executed what our ambition was. And Now the brand's ranged in over 8 different countries around the world. We're still ranged in Qantas first and business class. And we've been able to, I mean, I've essentially written myself out of the operating model because I have such good AI systems that are running our social media, as well as any of our future marketing plans. So I'm really a firm believer as AI can expedite and 10x your capability, if you've got these big ambitions. So the three ways that I see AI working in any business is it helps you drive your productivity gain. It can help with your strategic thinking and think bigger. So challenge, at 11 p.m. at night when you've got your biggest business questions, giving it and sort of giving those problems and getting it to play devil's advocate to help you get to that thought process. And then lastly, it can help you build. It can help you build solutions to your problems, that, whether it is new products, digital products, it can help build that capability. So I'll just give you my sort of 5 top tips before you even touch any AI if you're a small business. The first one is to really hone in on where do you want AI to play in terms of your business guardrails. You need to be really clear on what your non-negotiables are. Like for us, we were like, we don't want AI to do any of our Gen AI, like any imagery. It has to be real farm, has to be real product. That's what the chefs are expecting. But any back of house to write our social media captions or anything behind the scenes, we were all in on AI. The second one is AI doesn't know your business until you train it. Think of it as a very, very sophisticated intern. You're not going to let an intern just start executing your business without understanding who your customer is, what's your values, what's your tone of voice. It's really critical to make sure you train that AI model, whatever you're using. The third is really to identify internally what are the tasks you want AI to do. What are those daily repeatable tasks that you feel like AI could handle? And then the second step is to match what tool goes with that. Because tool fatigue, so many AI tools, generic AI tools out there. It can be quite overwhelming. So really working out what task you want AI to do, whether it's meetings, meeting note takers, general purpose, research, creative, working out what are the tasks in your business and then mapping it with your AI tool. And then the fourth one is prompting. And I'm a big believer, prompting's kind of the generic word for dropping something in. I really approach it more like a brief. I give it context, I give it the role that I want it to play. I ask it to interview me to get more context out, and then I give it the task that I want it to deliver. So this framework can be used across any AI model, and I guarantee you'll get a much better output when you start to extract value from it. And then the last thing I want to land on is AI in our customers' lives. So the more that we're using AI in our business world, the more our customers are too. So they're not Googling anymore. They're AIing, and are they discovering your business, your product within an AI environment? So the 2 top tips that I would give any business of making sure that happens is review your website. You need to have 1/3 human friendly, 2/3 robot. So make that nice part really easy to look at, but the bottom is text heavy. It's frequently asked questions. It's more text because that's what the robots scan for. And then lastly is around recommendations and reviews. AI will pick up credibility from other sources and then make sure that that's recommended. So that's it from me. I'm a big believer in AI. Obviously, I've seen it step change our own business and I've seen it with multiple other small businesses. It is the biggest economic leveler for regional businesses, given that it is giving us more access to capability and resource than ever before. So that's it from me. Thank you. I've got a little free starter kit if anyone's interested. I'll share the link post this session, but hopefully you got something out of that. Thank you.
Tiffany, that was wonderful. That was clear, and I understood AI better than I have ever done before. So thank you for that.
Great.
Um, Andrew Gill or Gilly, I'd love to get the farmer's perspective. Would you mind sharing with everybody your experience? We're looking at a chat rather than your presentation.
Thanks, Wardy. Is that visible for everyone? I'm not as polished on
That,
these Zooms as everyone else.
mate, that's coming through loud and clear and great graphic.
Awesome. So I'd just introduce myself first. I'm a family farmer from Narromine in central west New South Wales, just a bit west of Dubbo. We're a completely mixed farm with wheat, sheep, cattle, cotton, just about every other winter crop, and we've even got some goats floating around here at the minute. So I'm just here to talk about ag tech and what it means in our business and in our situation. I could go on for a long time about the etymology of ag tech, but I was told just to let Stephen Fry do it because he does that for a day job. Um, I don't know if well everyone should know or should have heard about Wagyu. So Wagyus were developed as cart and plow animals, up to 1,000 years ago in Japan. The Japanese needed a bullock that could survive the winter and be able to pull a cart or a plow. Um, they didn't know why 700 years ago that they were selecting animals that contain higher intramuscular fat than others, but it was just that those bullocks with the higher intramuscular fat survived better, worked harder in the winters. An interesting thing about the wags is that every different prefecture in Japan has their own part of the Wagyu story, and they all have a different genetic trait depending on their topography or their climate and their farming habits, which is, they were breeding for something that they didn't even really understand when 600 or 700 years later we've started eating their meat, and that really juicy meat and the fat through their muscle is now what we call marbling. So ag tech, agriculture and technology. Ag tech as a word, it's pretty recent. It only sort of started to pop up in the early 2010s, when venture capital started treating agriculture as an investment sector. Um, its modern roots are in venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, so a fair way from the world of agriculture that my forebears knew over 100 years ago when they all started arriving in Australia. Now, being an early adopter is very risky. Um, the big conundrum of farming at the minute across the globe is in the middle of a lot of these issues I'll outline. As the cost of production is continuing to go up, the price of our product in real terms continues to decrease. Margins are getting smaller. Legislation's putting more onus on us as the farmer. Consumers want more for their dollar. And the story about the provenance of our food and fibre is becoming at the forefront of our businesses. Farmers are having to turn to new things to be competitive. We're the ones who bear the economic, environmental, and social brunt of just about everyone in metropolitan areas with their fickle whims and decisions. The ag tech that we need develop needs to help us combat these problems. It's often quoted by farmers that farmers sell their product wholesale, they buy it back resale, and then we pay the freight both ways. Um, Being an early adopter is risky. Well, yes, it is, but so is missing out. If you look at this, the bell curve of adoption, by the time the laggards join the involvement or get their involvement up, they've generally paid for their lack of involvement early through greater costs of production or inefficiencies in their system. Our family's been at the forefront of being an early adopter in ag. Back to over 25 years ago, we're the second people in our district to use GPS to steer tractors. It was a massive cost. as an aftermarket option. Probably, and back then it was about 50% of the cost of a new tractor. The tech itself was actually developed, which is interesting, developed by a farmer at Boggabilla called Pete Mailer. The system was called Beeline. And we actually used to contract our tractors out to draw lines in paddocks for other farmers to spray and plant on, which is amazing to think back now. Um, Big Steel now controls the implementation and discovery of all new steering tech, and the cost base has diminished a lot since 25 years ago. Nowadays, we can't find anyone to sit on a tractor without GPS, and I can get a free app on my phone that'll give me pass-to-pass accuracy of less than 20 centimeters. Um, the justification for us to spend all that money 25 years ago was to eliminate the overlap in our farming systems, and with the savings paying for the technology we'd bought. It no doubt did it, um, which is that was a good result. In the process, though, we've lost the ability of being able to get a person out of the pub to drive a tractor. We can't get anyone. The training, it takes a lot of time to train people to operate a machine. Moving forward, 10 or 12 years ago, we're the first people to put large scale solar panels on a diesel pump in a diesel hybrid situation. The hardware that we used, nothing was new. It was just being put together in a novel way. While doing this, the first company that I got a quote off, when I questioned them on how their costings were made up, because they just so greatly inflated the costs of all the hardware, um, the salesman contacted me the day after I'd questioned him and asked if I'd consider using them as a supplier if we could do a cost plus five deal with a signed NDA, which I had to politely decline. So the benefits of the solar pump was massive reduction in fuel use, so an increase of efficiency, and our cost of production went down dramatically. A lot of people questioned me at the time on the environmental credentials of our pump, and my reply at that time was, I don't really know. It just makes economic sense. Um, at the time so 12 years ago, that tech was considered groundbreaking. Now systems like this they don't exist anymore. The technology's moved so quick. Um, in the last 30 odd years, probably even less, 20 years, the tractor cab has changed massively. We've gone from levers to pull to make the machine do things. Now we've got buttons and touch screens, we've got satellite steering, auto turn functions, machine control, and more data at our fingertips than we'll ever need. Big Steel at the minute, preparing us in tractor cabs for the future when robots are going to be doing all our work. The tech, it's changed so much and so quickly, and it's now training us in preparation for the age of autonomous machinery, which is actually here already. For those who know me, you probably won't be surprised that I can weave some toilet humour into any conversation. And to finish off with a little bit of fun, I'm wondering if anyone in the room has heard of Piddle Patch. It's the UK's environmentally friendly 0.3 of a square metre soilless grass for the puppies of inner city London to do their wheeze on. It's changed out every couple of weeks by the suppliers. Now, why is that AgTech? It's actually developed by a UK turf farmer. And if you don't believe me, go to piddlepatch.com. It's real. So in summary, for me, I believe that good ag tech has to deliver to the farming conundrums that I mentioned earlier. It either needs to decrease the unit cost of production or increase productivity and give back the farmer more time to do the $500 an hour jobs as opposed to the $50 an hour jobs. Necessity is the mother of all invention. For ag tech developers, don't build something for your sake. You've got to build something to fix a genuine problem. Anything else is a real waste of my time and your money. So that's probably the end of me at the minute. Thanks, Wardy. I'll try and stop this screen share.
Thanks, Gilly. Smashing it out of the park as well. Look, I think we've heard it already twice about necessity is the mother of invention, and that AI is kind of leading a new wave of that invention. So I'm going to ask Rowan from Farm Assistant whether he can share that story of AI and agentic AI. So over to you, Rowan.
Thanks, mate. Gilly and Tiffany, fabulous. My slides are nowhere near. I was running behind this morning. I've dictated to my AI and said, "Can you create some slides?" And I had a first crack at it, and it was covered with text. I've got 5 slides that are a bit simpler. Gilly is amazing. What he didn't talk to there is he's one of our pilot farmers or trial farmers for Farm Assistant currently. And I highly recommend watching a video that we did that was 2 weeks ago, so it's probably dated given how quickly Gilly's moving, about the farm management system, the customized system that he's been building for his farm. So, Woody, I'm sure you can share that link at
Yeah.
but anyway, so amazing as always, Gilly. Learned something new. Am I sharing the right screen there?
Yes,
Yes.
you are.
So we're building Farm Assistant. So we being Regen Farmers Mutual and Regen Digital. So Andrew Ward's actually, or Wardy is actually MD of Regen Farmers Mutual, and Regen Digital is a subsidiary of, or a partly owned company owned by Regen Farmers Mutual. Farm Assistant, just by a quick way of background, because I don't talk to it in these slides necessarily, it's an agent that farmers can use, and basically it sits on the farmer's phone. So one of our key insights, early insights, was farmers don't want to be in the office. They want to be in the fields, and if they've got time in the tractor, well, to the extent that they need to sit in the tractor before the robots take over, then if they can use their phone to engage with an AI and do work, then that's a really good thing. And so what Farm Assistant does is effectively enables that. It enables a farmer to engage with an LLM, an AI, a model. In order for that farmer to engage with that LLM, it uses what's called an open harness that's built by OpenClaw. It's an open source software. So that enables that farmer to have a persistent memory to build an AI an agent that has builds knowledge about the farm over time. And the third part of what we're doing with Farm Assistant is then bringing in a regen library, a library of resources that is managed by Regen Farmers Mutual, that effectively helps to enhance the way a farmer can engage with those LLMs. So it provides that additional context, if you like, that Tiffany was talking to. And so we're building a library of resources that, like, if you're a cotton farmer, there'll be cotton resources and what have you. So that's just a quick intro to Farm Assistant itself. We're not exactly a startup. We started this journey in COVID, and so during COVID, we ran a series of courses funded by the cooperative movement, and out of that came it was over a 6-month period. Out of this came a working group of farmers who decided that it was a good idea to form a mutual, a farmer-owned vehicle, to help them better engage with those environmental markets. So our initial focus was very much on environmental markets and assisting farmers to work out ways of delivering better environmental outcomes while still being profitable in their farming business. Regen Digital was spun out of that because we very quickly realised that we needed to have a vehicle that enabled farmers to control the data that goes to prove the environmental outcomes. So Regen Digital was formed in order to deliver particularly we've got 10 principles that came out of that co-design process that were written up by farmers. And one of those in particular talks to farmers having control, security, and privacy of their data. And that was like the key driver of the creation of Regen Digital, if you like. How do we create software that enables farmers to control and own their data, if you like? So we're not exactly a startup. We started in 2000 and we formed in 2021, and we've been funded to date really through a series of government grants to assist with farmers exploring environmental markets. Earlier this year, when OpenClaw landed, we had a bit of a road to Damascus moment where we just could see that the land had shifted and everything we'd built to date was going to be right. Well, that's now redundant. was in a sense the feeling we got. It's looking ahead perhaps, but not redundant in terms of the experience we had, but redundant in terms of the software we'd built, basically, because everything that we had built, in our view, could be replicated in due course through an OpenClaw agent that was, engaging with LLMs. And when we look at the landscape of AgTech software, we can see that same problem for many of the companies out there. And so through February and April, we just went hard at trying to understand what this new world looked like, what OpenClaw in particular was going to enable. So we set up our own instances. I'm sure we've all got stories and war wounds from kind of engaging with this new technology, which is just evolving so quickly. Absolutely incredible. So by May, we'd come up with a strategy that we put to the board and had approval, and we started on our first trials, basically. And that was when Gilly came on board as one of our leading pilot farmers, if you like. Now, what I thought would be interesting for this audience, the Rocket Seeder audience, on the assumption that people are coming here to learn about others' experience of AgTech, was to talk a bit about our experience to date using AI, and then that kind of implies and talks to where we see it kind of impacting AgTech more generally. And what we've discovered is like that exactly what Tiffany was talking about, that amazing amount of leverage you can get through using AI. The amount of ground we can cover is phenomenal. So having started in not many months ago, we've been able to build effectively a whole business. So when we started out, we were we did that research. We've been using AI for our coding capabilities, whether that's with respect to OpenClaw, with respect to our website, whether it's with respect to our other software. This is the most complex legal kind of I was going to say quagmire, but like legal kind of situation that I've worked in for a long time. I have a background in investment banking. I've worked in some pretty complex deals, across, and this, as we work through what the legal framework needs to be in order to help farmers engage with these AI in a way that manages their risk, but recognises the various parties involved. That's been a really interesting process. Again, we've leaned heavily into helping the AIs enabling us to help kind of consolidate and move through our thinking process as we kind of really uncover the various layers of legal risk, if you like, that we need to actually address. So there's various layers that we've been using AI for that's allowed us to kind of develop this business in a fraction of the time. One great example, apparently AI likes to have roles, right? So it plays better. So we've got a fleet of agents, and we've set up a hospital. And so we have a hospital where there's agents. We've got triage nurses and doctors, and they all have specific roles, right? So the triage nurse goes there and identifies the problem, scales, rates it, and goes, oh, right, that needs to go to that doctor. And there's a doctor who has a specific, responsibility for fixing these types of problems. That hospital is now supporting, it's our major support infrastructure for our fleet of agents. Perhaps another great example, I've always hated CRM since I first was forced to use one. And we've been using HubSpot for years now and paying, and it's just like so frustrating because it's so not fit for purpose. We've been able to replace that with our own custom-built CRM system. So, far cheaper and magnitudes of order more useful. So we've been able to, connect it to our meeting transcripts, so everything is getting dropped in. We could be able to connect it to the telemetry that's flowing off the way people are using the system. So what topics people are interested in, the levels of activity, the costs, and all that's flowing to our CRM in a way that you could never capture before. We've been able to connect it to the Telegram and the email messaging interfaces we use for engaging with farmers. And so we can actually, really simplify and harmonize that onboarding experience for farmers as they engage, with the assistant. And so basically, we have this incredibly high value CRM that we've been able to custom build and we can control. So, like as we learn more, we go, right, okay, that's no longer needed. How about this thing, which is absolutely fabulous. And so I guess that's probably a good place to land because it brings us back together with, well, using Gilly as an example, what he's been able to do on his farm is something analogous to what we've done with our CRM and what Tiffany's done in her business by using AI. In this case, we're using, like we're setting up it so that farmers can have their own open claw AI assistant. But by using AI, you can create this this support facility that is, smart, has persistent memory, and is able to build custom software that ultimately can become, replace a whole raft of different things that you've been using previously. So it becomes, in a sense, the phone becomes the aggregation point for all those systems that you have been using to date. There you go, Woody. I think that
Thanks, Rowan. So we'll take this opportunity of speaking to all our panelists. If you've got questions you want to have asked of the panelists, then please throw them in the chat. In the meantime, I'm go to you, Tiffany. It sounds like unicorns and rainbows AI, like, Gilly and Rowan, yourself. What's the shadow side, or what worries you about AI and AI on farm AgTech adoption? What's keeping you up at night around that?
For me, do you want me to go first? Yeah,
Please.
well, the speed at which it's getting adopted, I think most people don't really know its capability until they're demonstrated it. So you don't see what it could achieve. So I think the adoption rate, I think that's something that needs to be addressed, and just sharing more of these really unique stories, and not just the fluff. I think really getting under the hood and demonstrating it. I think what worries me is probably, I guess, the generational gap. Like I review a lot of the output that comes out, especially in the Margaret instance. I had 20 plus years of marketing strategy experience. I could tell whether it was good strategy coming out of an AI model or not. So, you base it on your own experience. The next generation coming through that is just relying on AI outputs, are they getting that same rigor behind it? That is what keeps me up at night. How are we sort of training those fundamental skills before relying on AI to make the answers for us?
Uh, Thanks, Tiffany. I think there's a generalized community concern that AI is going to make us dumber. And I think you're talking to that in part. Gilly, as a farmer, what keeps you up? Well, as a human as well. Mm.
Um, so with the all new technology, and I consider AI is new technology. Um, my worries are that, and with the speed of it, Tiffany was talking about the speed of the adoption of AI and the speed. I read somewhere the other day that Moore's law with AI is 7 months, so it's doubling its capacity every 7 months. So my worry is that with that, the the people in the background that are going to be able to fix this, the mechanics that'll fix problems within AI aren't going to be there. Similar with at the minute the techs that are coming out to fix our tractor aren't trained or can't be trained quick enough with the way that the big steel companies are making machinery. That's the bit that's really frightening for me is and if I go and invest in something that's, some new technology, will it be outdated by the time I've actually been able to pay for it? Which is, I think that's a really interesting and quite a weird concept from, because we don't actually know where we're going at the minute. That's probably my biggest fear at the minute with it all. Thanks, Wardy.
Thanks, Gilly. And Rowan, what keeps you up at night?
I've been deep in legal land over the last week or so, so I have been kept up at night about worrying about things. The perhaps the biggest one that's flashing in my headlights at the moment is that these AI gets things wrong, right? It's probabilistic by definition, and it might get things 99 times out of 100 right, but one time it might get it wrong, right? And the challenge is that in engaging with AI, people need to understand that, like that, and that was what I think Tiffany was saying, that like it helps to actually start in areas where you have a domain expertise, so you can know that it's giving you a bum steer. And so in my slide example this morning, when I asked it the first time, it's like, man, that's just terrible. But like, yes, so the fact that it gets things wrong, but the more we rely on it, the kind of the more difficult that becomes. And to Tiffany, your point, that's one of the things that's kind of occurred to us about the experiential gap. We think that like people and perhaps farmers are uniquely kind of, pretty good position given the average age of a farmer in Australia, that the older demographic can actually, they can leverage AI more than the younger generation, the 40 plus, because you have those years of experience that that younger generations don't have, which you're drawing on in order to kind of engage with your quality assurance check.
Well, I've got you, Rowan. What excites you about the AI opportunity, particularly on-farm ag tech adoption? You're,
Yeah, sorry, that's this sharing of knowledge, like humans learn through exchange of ideas, and the ability to share knowledge is going to be greatly amplified. And we're seeing that. So farmers are like, well, as I understand it, because I'm not a farmer, so I'm speaking completely out of turn, but it seems to me every farmer is an expert in their like own farm, right? That's their domain. They understand that. They live that every day. They can understand that domain. And as I understand it, again, farmers are more gregarious than me, and we're typically pretty gregarious. So they're not bad sharers, but by the same token, the ability to share information across landscapes is limited. The ability for this, for if we can get it right, to leverage AI to enable better sharing of knowledge. So this is partly why we're thinking about this library kind of concept. How do we enable one farmer who's doing something well to be able to kind of pass that knowledge to others in a way that's kind of efficient, but others might go, well, that's ridiculous, so I'm not doing that. Or they go, hell, that's great. So the idea of sharing of knowledge, I think, is pretty exciting if we can get it right.
and for you, Tiffany, what excites you about the next, what keeps you up with excitement instead of fear at
Yeah.
night? Yeah.
I think what Andrew and Rowan have demonstrated today, they're that third bucket of build, like the fact that they've come across a problem and they could solve it super quickly with bringing a couple of AI models or tech together that isn't outrageously costly. And they've got access to it, like the simple solution of just creating their own CRM, that is more tailored. Like I love the fact that AI is giving us the ability to problem solve and instantly create something. that is what excites me the most because the possibilities are really quite endless.
As one of two farmers online, Gilly, what's your thought?
Yeah, I'm probably echoing Rowan and Tiffany with this how where this will end, what it's done, what I've seen that AI has been able to do for me it's been amazing on I just think, it could end up, like it with the ability for me to be able to build my own apps um, without any knowledge of code is amazing. I can use all of the boring jobs that I hate doing in the office. I'd much prefer to be outside as a farmer, and I can get AI to do nearly all of my office jobs, which is it's fantastic. I can spend more time out doing the things that I actually enjoy, and I think that's the great that's the greatest thing. I just saw a message here in the message tab. I don't know if I'm allowed to jump in and answer the messages
Yeah.
about concerns about the energy and the water use of AI models and these data centers that we're all putting up, but that people are putting up everywhere. And I think that is a massive, massive problem or a massive concern that I actually wonder if I'm feeding that beast by using AI. I think it's probably not really it's a whole community concern, not just a farming concern. I think from my point of view, the way that areas have been set aside as renewable energy zones, I think that's terrible. I think it's been very short-sighted and hasn't worked well at all. And I hope that from a macro point of view that somebody does somewhere stand up and get this the energy and the water use right for AI data centers because I'd hate to see the loss of more precious farming country for something like that. Thanks,
Um,
Woody.
well, before we jump to the final panel question, Tiffany or Rowan, anything to say on water use, AI? How often are you finding that's a limiting factor in your use?
I think it's a very common question I get amongst small business owners. I think, like any technology change, there was always that, it's the opportunity cost, right? So, by introducing cars or rail, what it then does to other industries and the environment. So I think there's always going to be that. I think Andrew hit the nail on the head. There needs to be that real federal view as to how it's going to be rolled out. But look, I've seen even just the technology solutions that they're bringing into China and the US already around limited, like recycled water capabilities, less water usage, Elon putting them up in the sky. Like I think AI is already problem solving that issue of existing data centers. My biggest concern is these data centers. Think about your iPhone, right? You have an iPhone, it lasts about 2 years and you need to upgrade. Think about centers and computers in data centers, they're going to be the same. So that's my concern is how long will a data center be the most effective before it needs upgrading? So that's probably, yeah, one of my concerns as well. But yeah, it's real, but I think those problems are going to be solved by AI pretty fast.
Excellent. Well, that leads us nicely, if you wouldn't mind, Tiffany, just to what if there are venture builders in the Boomerang Labs or the Rocket Seeder community, what's your advice to them on how to deal with the next 12 months?
Yeah, I think, look, if you're not using AI, have a go. I think, just the basic large language models that are available, Chat, Copilot, or Claude. I mean, I'm a big advocate for Claude. Once you start to understand how that operates and how that can work as an operating system for your business, and then your ability to venture into coding side of building products. I think just have a go, have a play, and approach it. That's the best starting point, even if it's just on your basic questions that you have on business or even what to cook with the products in your fridge. You just got to get started because it's not going anywhere.
Uh, I might go to you next, Rowan, and leave the final word to Gilly. What do you think a venture builder should be looking at for the next 12 months?
Yeah. AI is like it's evolving so quickly. It's like it's amazing. Like in the time that we've been, speaking, it's probably been, because every time it means that that you're kind of working in a space where it's fairly the sand's pretty loose beneath you. You need to be kind of agile and kind of flexible to go, right. Oh, okay, that's changed. We're now going to be doing this. Um, but I agree with Tiffany that like I worry that like when I talk to my kids and their kid, their friends, there's not this general awareness that like this is going to be ubiquitous in 6 months, 12 months. And how do you get the best out of it? And I agree that the only way you really, you know, learn about it is by using it. And it's not the sort of thing, we're talking to my daughter's boyfriend is, at university doing economics and going, so yeah, how are you using it? He's going, oh, they don't teach it at university. It's like, well, it's the sort of thing you have to just go and do yourself. And you need to find a task that's valuable and just focus in on that, see how that can solve it for you. So maybe there's how do you make people more aware? But like, that's part of what I'd be thinking about. How is it going to become a ubiquitous? How's it going to go from where it is today, where we've got people using it really well, to everyone using it?
Shankar here, Uma Shankar here. I just wanted to ask one thing. I mean, yes, I mean, AI use is like really accelerating and it changes every second. By the time we finish our, call in the last 1 hour, there may be tremendous kind of changes in the models or, the way it's been deployed. But how are we really going to look at usage of like the technologies wherein you come up with a life cycle for agri development? Because we are trying to use the AI more user friendly, make the farmers enabled, empowered, and make them more accessible to the farming technologies. But how about the farming technologies itself?
So how are the farming tech like so the John Deere tractor or you're talking or the water sensors? Is that what you mean?
Uh, Suppose let's take the tractors, okay? For example, when you are trying to get into a grid, if you look at a farm, maybe take a big 1,000 acres or whatever, maybe the big land, and without having a grid system wherein you have, rows and columns kind of identification of the farm, and when I want to do the auto kind of seeding, I should able to enable that kind of, mapping, and intelligently I should able to collect that back to the agri development. So that kind of innovation has not yet been worked through, and I'm working on that from last 6 months, and that's where I was that's the one of the reason why I registered for this event. So I would like to more about that, and I'm looking for any kind of collaborations or any kind of uh, working along in that direction.
Great. You might just give us a second, Muska, and we might talk to you specifically after this. I'll let Gilly answer his question, and then Katie, I'd love you to wrap if that's all right.
Um, yeah, Wardy, we're talking about things before we get to the last comment about the venture capital thing around AI and what farmers really need and want. Is that what you'd like me to discuss quickly?
Mm.
Um, Interestingly enough, and it might sort of answer a few more questions as well. I'll probably open a Pandora's box, but for me, I think we need some playbooks on how to make this stuff work, and it's quite hard to. I mean, when I first opened up my agent and started discussing things with it, I had no idea what I was doing. And I think the playbook, that's probably the first place that we need to go to. I'm pretty sure Tiffany's rolling out her playbook to people. And that's sort of where I think we have to get to. Um, yeah.
Katie, thank you so much for the opportunity. For my own benefit here to listen to Gilly and Tiffany, I get to hear Rowan quite frequently, but what, thank you so much for this opportunity. I would invite those that have got questions to put them in, and stick around if you would like, and we'll provide some Rocket Seeder resources or Boomerang Lab resources for you. Over to you, Katie.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Woody. I don't think there's really much more for me to add there, but thank you everyone for joining. We've already shared links to our next webinars in the chat, but you'll receive a follow-up email later today, I believe, from Taylor from our team with a recording of this session as well. So thanks for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you again in a future event.